sholo sama.
Shosholos, Kulas und Tabas, Timelas,
Our award acknowledges the remarkable teaching and speaking skills shown by Polly Nooter Roberts over the 20 years that the EAC has been privileged to know and learn from her. Largely through her museum activities and the related talks, in the public classroom, or the Zocalo, the public square, where we choose to learn rather than in the traditional classrooms of our youth. While many of us are collectors and patrons of non-Western art, all of us seek more knowledge about the people and cultures that create the art. We discover the multiple aesthetic traditions that underpin the objects we view and sometimes even own. If nothing else, we are also collectors of knowledge, lifelong learners, our curiosities unabated as we learn about a diverse world whose traditions and cultures are manifest through their art. And Polly Nooter Roberts has been, in many ways, our own sensei in the discovery and or reinterpretation of African art and culture through her stellar exhibitions and passion to share her knowledge. It has always been a dynamic relationship we have had with you, Polly. The more we learn, the more excited we become, the more we seek, the more you give. Polly, we honor you for your inspirational, compassionate, and passionate devotion as a teacher for all, in and outside of the classroom of life. You have given full-throated voice to the forgotten, often misunderstood Luba people, and especially their women, whose silence and steadfastness belies the quiet power they hold as generators of the future. You have given more visibility to the magnificent art and cultures of ancestral Africa through your vast intellect and uncompromising respect for its people. Your commitment to share your knowledge and the personal resilience you have shown have taught us to respect the African cultures and its people, whose history has been riddled by war, famine, colonial ventures, and now the demands of modernity. You have taught us that in spite of our cultural differences, we share a common humanity. We look forward to more of your creative exhibitions and teachings. Polly Nooter Roberts, Dai-Sensi. Polly, this is from the Query tribe. It's a diviner's staff. In African cultures, staff generally represents one's authority and stature, so it's fitting that we found a staff for Polly as a symbol of her place as a distinguished elder in our community.
Wow, that was extraordinary. Feely, that was such a beautiful presentation. And the gift is just beyond measure. I just want to thank Feely so much and all of her team for tonight, for the panache and the beauty and festivity of this evening, and for all of you who are here, and to the EAC members whose support and warmth and generosity of spirit are so palpable and so meaningful to me. When Feely first called me to tell me about the award, and she told me the title of it, the Dai-Sensi, I was overcome for a variety of reasons. One of which is that our older son, Seth, is part Japanese, and therefore Al and I have a great many cousins in Japan, some of whom happen to be Dai-Sensi. They are teachers, master teachers of a diversity of art forms and crafts, such as baking for the traditional tea ceremony, banner painting, taiko drumming, and calligraphy. Al and I have long admired the tradition of the Dai-Sensi. So a little while later, I decided to do what any good scholar does and look on my phone to find out the true definition of Dai-Sensi. And I found two definitions. One is one who came before. The other is one who teaches with the wisdom of age and experience. Every great teacher has been a student for long years and is hopefully always a student. And the Dai-Sensi tradition does value that terminology that Fili used of lifelong learning, which I think the EAC embodies so beautifully, as do many African cultures like Lega society, where the Bwami Association always recommends never to stop learning at any particular initiation stage, but to continue learning throughout one's lifetime, even into the afterlife. And that the teacher-student relationship is a fluid one. We are very lucky to have here tonight a table that was purchased by a very benevolent anonymous benefactor for our students. And raise your hands, students. 7 of the students are from our Department of World Arts and Cultures, which is right next door to us here, next to the Fowler, in the Kaufman building. And several other students are seated at the table who are working with Fili for the EAC. And it's such an honor to have our students with us this evening to represent the dynamism and the diversity and the remarkable topics that they are pursuing in our interdisciplinary study of world arts and cultures and dance. I hope that you'll have a chance to meet them tonight and to find out about what they're doing, because they represent the brilliant young minds that give so much joy to Al, my husband, and me as professors. And I have to say truthfully that I believe we have learned more from them than they have probably learned from us. But it is a two-way process. It's a call and response. That's the teacher and student relationship. Our students are becoming teachers as we speak, and we hopefully will always be students. There's some interesting activity behind us.
They're students.
Students! The vitality of students.
They're learning.
They're learning. But I also want to say that I know that the EAC award recognizes a different kind of teaching. Not only the teaching in the academy, but the kind of teaching that we as curators and museum professionals do in museums through our exhibitions, related programs, and publications, which is to teach vast audiences. Audiences that are of every background, every age, every educational level. I always say to my students, you have to do your scholarship and write those monographs, which you might be able to publish about 300 of. But when you work in a museum, you might publish 5,000 to 15,000 copies plus of a book, because the audience is so much greater and you are reaching so many people, some of whom may be familiar with the arts that we all love and have been talking about this evening through the beautiful film that we saw. But also some have never encountered these arts before. So it's an opportunity to challenge misperceptions, to engage visitors with the beauty and richness of cultures that they may or may not have ever encountered, and to enlighten and enrich the lives of those who come into contact with these works of art. This is our responsibility as curators of cultures that are different from our own. We serve a particular role, which is the role to teach the wisdom of age and experience. But that wisdom is not our own in this second definition of the Dai-Sensi. That wisdom has come from the peoples whom we have worked with, who have taught us and mentored us, and generously bestowed upon us the gifts of knowledge that are their cultural beliefs and practices and aesthetic philosophies. So I would say that as a Dai-Sensi, I feel more like a messenger. A messenger, a mediator, a translator. And I tell my students that the best kind of translation is not just a mere replication from one language to another or one culture to another, but rather the greatest translation is when you, the translator, become changed by that which you are translating, or become changed by the culture that you are representing. That is when the greatest transformations occur. It has been such a pleasure to be able to learn from the elders in Luba culture first and foremost, where I was introduced to the great Lukasa memory boards. I mean, talk about a library of knowledge. And then to the Mourides of Senegal, who taught us about the most esoteric wisdom of Sufi philosophy, and on to our most current research in the Indian Ocean world, where we work with devotional artists and practitioners in such meaningfully nuanced and complex ways. These are the reasons why I am so proud to be able to bear the mantle of the Dai-Sensi Award. But I cannot let the evening go by without mentioning several people who are very dear and near to me, who have come before and who have come after. And the first of those is my parents, Robert and Nancy Nooter, who would be here tonight if they could be. They are in Washington, D.C. They're collectors of African art, as many of you know, and my mom is a scholar, or was, and who introduced me to Africa as a very tiny little girl of 5 years old when we moved to Liberia for 3 years. And Jeremiah Cole is here tonight. And Jeremiah, believe it or not, I used to ride on the shoulders of his father, just for fun, when people would come to the house to show my parents art. And then my parents went on to move to Tanzania when I was in college, and I had the opportunity to spend 2 summers there. And that is where I found my calling. And I knew that studying the arts and cultures of Africa would be my lifelong passion. And the rest is history, until I met a certain Al Roberts, the Tabwa guy, the man who, with Evan Maurer, Evan, raise your hand too, published The Rising of a New Moon, a century of Tabwa art. The Tabwa are neighbors of the Luba. And Al and I fell in love after he had become a widower 3.5 years later with his son, Seth. And we have been partners in love and in scholarship and in curating and in even lecturing and writing ever since. It has been a joyful, joyful partnership. And with Al, we have been able to raise the remarkable family of Seth and Sid and Avery, our children, who I feel have learned so much from the trips that we took every single summer to Senegal, even in winter and sometimes in spring, and to so many other countries, always off the beaten path. Suriname and Mauritius and South Africa and Ghana and Tanzania. We spent one 7-week trip in Zanzibar and Hyderabad, India, with our 2-year-old and 7-year-old. And these ideas have rubbed off on them. And they are carrying these ideas into the world with them now as young adults. And there is nothing more gratifying to see than that. I also want to mention on a very personal note that these last 7.5 years, I have ridden the cancer wave. And I bring it up because there is somebody here tonight who has been a different kind of teacher to me. I have learned with Al as my rock through this journey of living with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer to the liver, as I say, for 7.5 years, the meaning of detours and the value of the unexpected in our lives, and what we can learn when life throws us a curveball. And the man who has taught me these things is Michael Esselin. Where are you, Michael? Michael, stand up. Michael is my cancer chaplain at UCLA's Sensai Center for Integrative Oncology. And with my doctor and our care team and sister cancer patients and so many others who have been our support group through all this time, we have learned another kind of teaching. We have learned what it means to be a patient and to learn from those who understand that we can face the challenges and we can transcend them. So all of these individuals from Luba country to Michael Esselin, to Al, and to my colleagues and friends, and to our students, and to my literal teachers and my parents who came before me, I thank you all for this beautiful gift of a lifetime of the Dai-Sensi Award and my divination staff, which will never leave my side. Thank you.
Africa, malupaganyiso